So last time we talked about marriage and money, and today we're going to dig deeper into the issue of finances in a family setting, mainly how to deal with finances with your kids.
I want to go back to uh, where we actually started with our older kid. I think the where we really started teaching him about money was asking him to budget. And
Yes.
in this sense, previously, before we got to that point, he'd say, "Hey, I want this toy. I want this toy," and then we'd say yes or no, and we'd buy for him. But then we changed that. We said, "Okay, we'll give you a budget." How old was he?
Honestly, I can't remember.
Maybe
5, 6?
yeah, 4, 5. Uh, uh, yeah,
Yeah, around
around that time.
It's been a while.
And so we said, okay, if you had a toy, instead of us deciding for him, we said, okay, we'll give you a budget. Your budget is, say, $10. Okay. And then an amazing thing happened. He actually sat down with the iPad. Instead of just picking the toy that he wanted, he would scroll through. At that point, I think he really couldn't read. So I think it was 4. He really didn't understand numbers very well. And so he'd scroll through, he sees a toy, and then he'd ask his mom, how much is this toy? And then his mom would say, okay, well, this toy is $14. Then he's like, okay, it's more than $10. And then he'd keep on scrolling until he found a toy that was within budget. And so the point there is, no matter what age your kid is, there is always a way. It might be when you're going to the supermarket, maybe you like to buy them sweets, candy. Well, instead of just buying for them, you could give them, each one you give them their money. It's like, this is your money to buy whatever, and then they have to decide. Is that process of actually going through making decisions by themselves,
Right.
which is the key. You're teaching them to make decisions.
And the other thing is, even if you go grocery shopping with them, just them seeing you pay and seeing how much things cost, right? It's important because my son would say something like, "Wow, I didn't know food was this expensive," right? So we can talk about it and say, "Okay, yes, this is why we budget. This is why we buy the things we buy," and also just telling him that yes, I give you a budget, right? I ask you to draw up a budget. I also have to draw up a budget. Now, it might be a totally different budget from you, but I'm doing the things that I'm teaching you as well. So that it's just not you like paying lip service,
Yeah.
but for them to actually see that you are doing the same thing, right? So not being afraid to show your children what you are doing as well.
Yep. No, I think that makes sense. And then I think that's a nice segue into, well, actually getting your kids to know, how do you make money?
Yep.
How do you make money? And so I think those are some of the things that start connecting dots for them to say, oh, okay, well, when mommy and daddy end up with money, where does it come from? They might not know exactly how much you make, and you might not want to share with them. We don't share with our kids, but it is for them to know that where does money come from? That, hey, when dad is doing this particular thing, this is where the money comes from. I think that's really important in just helping them, to tie those together.
Yeah, and I feel like as our son gets older, we tend to share more things. Like if we're thinking of a business plan, we can have that conversation with him and say, "Oh, this is what mom and daddy are thinking." This is, and then he'll have questions like, "Okay, so how are you gonna make money? Like, what are you planning on doing?" And obviously, age appropriately, we share with him, so that he's got an idea of, oh, okay, you can make money in different ways, right? It's not just going to work. There's other things, other ways of making money. You can be an investor in real estate, in the stock market, and all that, so that he's got a wider view of what's out there.
Yep. And also, I think in that vein, one other thing which I think he is, he is slowly getting to understand. As kids, if we as a kid, if you heard, I'm just thinking back to when we were kids, if you heard that, your parents have $1,000. I can't remember how much it was worth back then. But just as an example, think, wow, that is a lot of money, and you can't even fathom what you could do with that kind of money. Because, at least in my head, the thing that I want to buy most was, say, a sweets candy, and so I'm thinking $1,000. How much candy can I buy? But I think starting to involve kids in as you are evaluating some of the things that you want to do, some of those ideas that you're trying to pursue, to say, hey, this is what we're trying to do. If it works, this is how much it would cost us, and this is how much we might make. It starts giving them perspective. They start seeing a picture bigger than bigger than chocolates, bigger than, hey, the amount of money that they're used to dealing with, for going to the store, to the tuck shop, or something along those lines. And I think that's one thing which I'm seeing with our son, as we share with him, say, hey, these are some of the things that we are trying to do. It sort of opens up his mind, and he gets a perspective that he would not have gotten elsewhere. And I think that's really valuable, just for him to start appreciating, to start appreciating what the possibilities are. And I think one key thing to touch on, maybe this might be more for men than women, to say, when it comes to pride, sharing, the obviously the one thing that can be scary is, hey, what if I share and everything totally fails? Yeah, I can totally understand. I've tried many things which have totally failed. I learned many lessons, but whatever I had as the plan did not work out. Sharing that with my son, I think he's getting valuable insights to say, well, the success is not instant. That my daddy has failed and probably still has many more failures that lie ahead. And I think the reason that's really important is that by the time stories hit the news, it almost sounds like, oh, this is an overnight success. And I think to the extent that our kids can see that process, and see that process of failure that their parents are going through, say, hey, we're trying, but it did not work out. I think it's a really valuable lesson, so that they don't buy off this thing of overnight success, which is for the most part a fallacy. Are there people that have succeeded overnight? Yes, but out of every 100, how many are they? I have to think less than 1%. For the vast majority of everyone who's successful, it has taken years and years and years of hard work. And I think another really nice tie-in with that is going back to our son, and this thing of, hey, he does these little menial tasks around the house, these jobs that we pay him for. And he's done it for a few years now. And the one thing that he amazes him, which has really sort of solidified the lesson we're trying to tell him, to say, you achieve big things by doing little things every day. Now he looks at how much he has invested, and he often come and say, wow, all this came from doing little jobs every day, earning $1 here, $1 there. All of that has grown into his investment account. And so that's really given him perspective. Say, look, if you're going to have something big or a big success, it's not that you just go and hit a huge and like you have a huge out of the park kind of thing. No, it's got to be those little steps that you're doing.
Being intentional habits.
Being intentional, doing those little things every day that then add up to something huge.
Yeah. And I know some people might be thinking, well, I do not even have that knowledge. how do I impart it to my children, which is a very good point, right? The question is, are you looking for that knowledge for yourself, right? Are you also being intentional in finding out things and not being an expert, right? But at least being intentional about your own finances, right? And then obviously, if you do not have that knowledge of investing, you are surrounded by people,
Yeah.
right? So being intentional to look in your circle and saying, okay, who handles their money well? How do they do it? Go talk to them, right? Who is an investor? You've probably heard people like your friends, your family talking about investing, and because you didn't really have interest, you kind of like shook it off. You have those people around you that you can ask if you really want to learn. And now we've got so many resources like on the internet on where to start. So this is not about being an expert. I do not consider myself an expert. And I know for sure you're not an expert, right? But it's just that intentionality of wanting to teach your kids so that they're in a better place than you were, and not just like leaving them like lots of money, lots of assets that they will not know how to handle.
Yeah, and so I think at that point, I'd like to go into relationship dynamics between the husband and the wife, because I think that's a really important point. So on that point, I was nodding along to say, yes, these are things that really need to be done. But if I'm to be honest here, between the two of us, one of us is really good at, conceptualizing things. One of us is the visionary for what can be, the things that are possible. And it's not me. Okay. But this is the reason that I bring it up. It's actually okay to acknowledge that, yes, between the two of us, my wife is a strength in that area, and I do not. And it's okay for her to be the visionary and paint the vision. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with following your wife's vision, because at the end of the day, we are on the same team. If I wanted to go on the premise that, hey, I am the man of the house, so by default I must be the smartest, that is not true. There might be some things. I mean, we're a team.
Oh, yeah.
There's many things where she has strengths, and there's other things where I do have strengths. And I think just that humility to say, hey, just because your wife has ideas that are really good, it doesn't mean that I'm a lesser man. It just means that she's really good, and I should be listening to her. And I think it just comes down to some of those relationship dynamics where we just end up holding ourselves back. We'd end up holding ourselves back as a couple just because I do not want to acknowledge that, hey, ideas are really good. If I don't bring myself to that place of saying, you know what, these are good ideas, I'm going to follow your vision, and I'm going to be the legs and feet here. Tell me what it is that needs to be done, and I'll do it. I would end up just holding our family back. And so again, just I know sometimes as a culture we come from that place where there's the men of the house and stuff. Maybe zvatarwa na DD ndozvinoitika. Maybe just self-introspect and see how far that has gotten you up to this point. And actually, in our culture, we do have a saying. It's what's called mushamkadzi. And even in the English culture, they do have a saying: behind every successful man is a woman. And so it's just that recognition across cultures to say, hey, when looking at between men and women, we are all equal, but we're created different. We have different strengths, men and women, and it's okay to let your wife just lead in that area that he has strengths in, and for you to be the follower, and that is completely okay.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, when it comes to that, like behind every successful man, there's a woman, right? The impression that we've gotten is the man is at the forefront, right? And the woman is the one like pushing
Yeah.
from behind.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, okay, it's not a bad thing at times for the wife to be at the forefront,
Yeah. Agree.
right? I mean, we have different, as you said before, we have different strengths and weaknesses, you know, and it's not a given that the man is strong in finances and the woman not so
No.
much, right? In some families it is that way, but in others not so much. So I guess the important thing is to just know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and use that to your advantage, right? Not just for yourselves, but for your kids, for the next generation, for generations to come. Like, you want to leave a legacy, right? You want to leave an inheritance for the future generations. And yes, it might be financial, but then that will not last if there's no financial knowledge
Yeah.
passed on from generation to generation. So as much as we can acquire like financial wealth, we should just be cognizant that we're not just passing on the wealth, but we're also passing on the knowledge.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I agree with all that. I agree with
Right.
all of that.
We don't want a situation where we've built an empire, but because we did not take the time to pass on that knowledge to our children, to the next generation, the minute we are gone, that's gone. Or the minute the husband is gone, that's gone. So just making it normal to pass financial knowledge between spouses, between children, you know, even like in families, right? If you have a family business, you just don't want one person having all the knowledge.
Yeah.
You all want to have the knowledge, so that those things go on once the head is gone.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree with that.
So let's normalize passing financial knowledge, not just the wealth, not just the money, not just the assets, but making the knowledge a priority above all else.
I agree. And the key emphasis point that I just add is that it all starts with the two of you being on the same page.
Correct.
Only then do you then cascade it down to the kids. If the two of you are not on the same page, it's going to be really difficult to get anything cascaded down to the kids.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And if you're in a situation where maybe you and your spouse are not on the same page, or will never be on the same page, then at times you kind of have to take the lead and say, okay, with what I have, this is the best I can do to pass to my children, right? And not necessarily shying away because you don't have the knowledge. At times it's okay to say to your child, I want to teach you this, but I really do not know.
Yeah.
You know, we can learn together, we can research together. You know, let's find someone who can explain this to us, to both of us, right? Because I want to learn and I want you to learn. And kids appreciate that. You know, it's good for them to realize that their parents don't know everything, right?
Yeah, and also I think a nice tie in there is where do we think we get, these husbands who claim that they know everything and that they're the final authority, the final word. That's what they grew up seeing.
Yep.
They seeing whoever was the figurehead who claimed to know everything and would not take advice from anyone. And so I think, as we it's okay to show that vulnerability to our kids. Say, I actually don't know everything.
You know, being vulnerable is not a bad thing. It's not a sign of weakness in my book. To me, being vulnerable with someone is a sign of trust, right? I'm saying to you, when I'm being vulnerable, that I trust you with my emotions, right? Not that I'm weak.
Yeah, and so I think, especially when it comes to being vulnerable to kids, is in that light of, hey, there's this thing I don't know. I think it's just not saying, hey, I don't know, full stop, but then showing them what to do about it
Right.
when you encounter that there's something you don't know. So it's ought to go something like, hey, I don't know, but let's find out, let's research together, so that they know, okay, well, there's going to be many things in life where you're not going to know, but you can find out, you can research, so that they know to take that next
Oh, yeah.
step.
I mean, there's always someone who knows more than you, right?
Yeah.
And I always say, if you're the smartest person in that room, then you need to get out of the room, right? You always need to be in a place where you can grow. So it's important for them to know that they should not know everything. They are not going to know everything, and that's okay. But when you don't know something, you just don't sit on that. You take steps to learn so that you are knowledgeable.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. So I think we'll end here for now, and we'll continue next time. We'll pick up from where we're living off things, and I hope you learned something new, and hope you're on your way to teaching your kids. And this is not just your biological kids, by the way, right? Everybody knows someone. Everybody knows a child somewhere, right? So don't just say, well, just because I don't have kids, I can't teach. You can teach your nieces and nephews. You know, there are so many people, so many kids in the communities that you are in, and even in the churches that you're in, that you can teach, right? So make it a point to teach a child somewhere, right? And if you don't know, then take a step to know, right?
Yep.
All right. So until next time, take care.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye.